person, which is great. It's nice to meet so many people who I've met via Zoom or Teams over the last couple of months. I hope everyone can hear me. Can everyone hear me first of all? Yes? Good. Get used to it. You're going to be listening to me for about an hour and a half. So I apologise in advance, but we'll get through it. So today we officially welcome the European Year of Youth in Ireland. And we have a wonderful lineup of speakers and activities, which you'll see in a couple of minutes. But I'm going to give you a kind of a whistle-stop tour through the agenda. So we'll hear welcoming remarks in a few moments from MEP Maria Walsh, and then we'll move on to a panel discussion on how we can better connect with Europe. So we have a really interesting conversation there, and I think you'll all enjoy that one. Before lunch then, we'll have a World Cafe session, which I'll explain in more detail shortly, I do promise. And then at lunch, I'm delighted to say we'll be joined by Minister for, and I'm going to make sure I get this right, it's Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth. I did have it off by heart, but I'm not going to risk it. Roderick O'Gorman, he'll say a few words while you're finishing your cups of coffee, and then we move on to workshops as well. The workshops, once again, I promise I'll provide more detail on a little shortly. I am your MC for today. Unfortunate for you guys, but delighted for me. My teachers always said I talk too much, so it's nice to put those talents to good use for once. I'm a journalist by day. I'm then a master's student in DCU and political communications by night, so trying to master that trade unsuccessfully, but we'll get there. And I also wear many other hats, which I suppose will help to convey my passion for today's event as well. I'm a proud Eurodesk ambassador, I should start by saying. I'm also part of the steering group for the European Year of Youth here in Ireland, and I'm one of 12 young journalists who are part of the European Pool of Young Journalists for the year, which is an incredible and exciting opportunity. And then I'm also co-host of the Eurodesk Be Europe podcast, which is exploring what it means to be a young European in 2022. So when you're on your way home and you're in the car, you're going to listen to that on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts, because if I don't say that now, then I'm not doing my job. Hopefully, as we enter, and I'm going to say it as we enter into a post-COVID period, which I'm not going to jinx because I know there's been a couple of people in the room who are supposed to be in the room today who aren't as a result of it. But hopefully as we enter into a post-COVID period, we can reflect on the fact that young people have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Many of us have had to put our lives, hopes and dreams on hold over the last 2 years. And I think as we keep that in mind, we need to make sure that we make plans with young people in mind. We can't credibly make plans for the future for the EU without having meaningful conversations with young people. As a person who proudly identifies as European and Irish, as I'm sure many of you do, I'm passionate about the European Year of Youth because it presents us with an opportunity, and that opportunity is to listen to what young people have to say and build a youth-inclusive future. And I think it's really important to emphasise that that's what we're trying to do over the next year, and it's hopefully going to be the lasting legacy of the year as well. It's also an opportunity to reach more young people from diverse backgrounds and share with them the array of opportunities and programs that are available to them. I know so many of you in the room are well aware of the opportunities. To be honest, I'm learning about new opportunities every day. I had a couple of conversations this morning with you all about things from the European Solidarity Corps to Erasmus Plus and everything else in between. So it's a very exciting time. And I think I want to emphasise the need for that to be a multi-stakeholder process as well. And you all represent your own organisations and own groups in the room. But we need to make sure that we work together. And one of the benefits of having you all in the room today is that we can work to make sure this year is a success and also ensure that the European Year of Youth has a lasting legacy and one that's positive and one that supports young people long into the future. So that's me done and dusted for the moment. I'm delighted to say, I'm actually particularly delighted to welcome Maria Walsh, because I think Maria and myself have probably been connected online for a very, very long time. We met in person for the first time today, and I'm a big fan of Maria. So can you please give a warm welcome to MEP Maria Walsh, please?
Thank you. What a welcome. God, I'm old when I can't even get on the stage. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to bypass all the formalities and just say how also excited I am that I got to meet Harry in person. He was doing this whole social media stalking thing for a long time. It just got really awkward. I kid. But on a more serious note, I'm super, super proud to be here. I'm delighted to be associated with a youth event, particularly this year. And I have no formality words because I really am just looking forward to a good Q&A. And essentially what I'm looking forward to is y'all telling me, A, how to do my job better, more consistently, more communicatively. I also am looking for ideas in what you want to hear and be discussed within the European Parliament, not just in Brussels, but also in Strasbourg when we meet once a month. And I also am looking forward to posts this year. What it is that you want from organisations, political folks like myself, and as Harry said, pro-Europeans like us all to bring forth. Because this year doesn't just stop at the end of this year. It is the first step in terms of growing more and learning more. To give you a little bit of backstory of who I am and where I'm coming from, Moira Branach is Anam Dum. Don't ask me anything else in Irish because that unfortunately is as much as my Gaeilgeoir mother had taught me. And if you're filming this, I really apologise because if I'm naming and shaming her, she'll be super embarrassed. But I am 34 years of age. I'm the youngest Irish MEP yet. And I say yet because one or two females that I met just in the short time that I've been here has told me that they want my job, which is extremely exciting because that fundamentally is the reason why I got involved in politics. So we didn't grow up in a house that discussed party policy, the political suasion of the day, or how something politically led, policy led, was impacting or interfering in our lives. In our household, I was born in America, but raised in a beautiful village, cosmopolitan area called Shrule, just on the border between Mayo and Galway. Typical household, GA mad, still waiting for that All-Ireland called Sam. And the household I grew up in was someone who volunteered. Active citizenship was our politics. So we did everything from serving teas and coffees at community centres, to parent-teacher meetings, to reading at Mass, to church gate collections, to marshalling St. Paddy's Day Parade, to serving dinner at the Senior Citizens Party. I don't say that in a, look how great I am in terms of volunteerism, but that was my politics. You were never a want. If someone needed something, that's what you stepped up to do. And that's the politics I grew up in. Fast forward, all through my teenage years, I was involved in a youth organisation called No Name Club, which was celebrating, actually very much like this, celebrating young voices, trying to instill confidence, to hold events such as this, where conversation and communication and really forward thinking on young people were at the core of everything No Name did. I was also involved in the Pioneer Association. This is probably unfortunately less known. So abstained from alcohol and other substances, made that decision when I was 12. It's usually here where I start losing folks, but we're in a room of young people, so I best have not lost too many of you. My sense of humour is a lot funnier after 2 cups of coffee and I'm only at 1, so excuse. Fast forward that period of my life, and I was educated in this country, always had the desire to move away in the sense of go back and kind of push myself out of my comfort zone. Spent about 2 years in New York City, took a big chunk of the Big Apple. The Big Apple took a big chunk out of me. And then I headed to Philadelphia, which is known as the city of brotherly and sisterly love. And it is there where I stayed for about 4 years and was involved in a little Irish festival called the International Rose of Tralee. Usually I get a whoop whoop, but obviously I've lost the room now. But thanks for the pity party, I appreciate that. But I tell you all that because one thing I hope comes up in the heavy agenda that you have today, it is that nothing is lateral, nothing goes in a clean line. Everything moves and shifts like a couple of squiggly lines on a page. And if I heard that at any age, hell, if I heard that yesterday, I'd feel a little bit more reassured today that things are moving, but unfortunately move at quite a slow pace in today's current climate, particularly in politics. And understanding that and understanding where energy needs to go or how we make things move collectively is fundamentally why I put my hand up and got involved in the political realm. I was always fascinated by US politics, given the fact that I carry a US passport. I came onto the scene of understanding a little bit about politics when President Obama was coming on the scene. And I was always flabbergasted, I was always floored at the way his language and that audacity of hope piece always came to the fore. And you missed it in politics, particularly in Europe, not just in Ireland, but across Europe. Fast forward then a couple more years, and post my being involved in an international festival, understanding where my voice came, understanding that I actually did have a voice and a vision, but also knowing that nothing moved unless we all moved together. Throughout the Rose of Tree year, I talked from everything about being LGBTQI to mental health, to the fact that while there's communities in South Africa, in India, parts of the United States, in Australia, while they seem far away, they're actually very, very close to us. And how we talk about them, how we highlight them is incredibly important, that we are all a unified voice, and we're all working towards very similar goals, even though while it may seem on days where it's only you that are pushing up that boulder. I got involved in politics because fundamentally I didn't see anybody who looked like me, sounded like me, talked like me, and I didn't see them in rural Ireland. I come from a very cosmopolitan area in the west of Ireland, but I realised at some point in my life armchair activism had to end. And for me, that is where it became a fundamental, important step where I had to get up off the armchair. I had to get away from the conversations where we were just talking, me and my mates were just talking about the same thing every day, but actually not doing anything about it. So I bravely, and perhaps someday stupidly, put my hand up and got involved. I went for to a course by Women for Election, where I got to understand a little bit about quotas, about how geographical spread works, about the different political parties at hand, and then fundamentally, what is a kitchen cabinet, and who do I need around my kitchen table in order to try and push a different voice. Young people was at the core of everything I did. Mental health was at the core of everything I did. Equality also, and not just for LGBTQI, but for women, for other minority groups. But everything aligned with that was around, right, where is our future going? And if we're not listening to voices, my own or my mates, or more importantly, your voices, then nothing is going to change, ever. And that has been, for the last 2.5 years, something that I've been very, very close to. So I see Harry impatiently trying to tell me to wrap it up. I could see him moving there. It's great when you just kind of do a turn like this and you just ignore something completely, but I encourage you not to do. But I'm going to pause and say, I know we're going to do some Q&A from the floor. I'll be around for, you're not getting rid of me quite yet. I will be around for, is this him knocking me out? The power of one's microphone. But I'll be around for another wee while, so if nothing wants to come from the floor, if someone has a very specific question, please just grab me. I'm an open book. If I don't answer something the way you want me to now, or I'm not informed enough, particularly if it's about a vote in particular, I'll come back to you either through Lergus or you directly. So I always like to stress that. And with that, Harry, would you like to ask a question?
So we have about a 45-minute grilling planned.
Oh, great.
Give or take. Everything from your politics to family, everything else in between.
Great.
If anyone has any questions, by the way, you can just throw up your hand at any stage. I have a couple of questions here. They're not great. I'm not a very talented interviewer. So please do feel free to throw your own in. One? Yeah. That's me out of the job anyway. No, please, fire ahead.
I love the sisterhood. This is so good.
This is great.
Okay, so from Tralee.
Hey!
So,
That's where the road to Tralee is held, folks, so we have to do it in a unified way.
so can I just say, Maria, like, I remember, because I'm way older than you.
No, not at all.
Way, way older. I remember when you hit the Rose Tree and you fundamentally changed
Oh,
that
well.
international festival
No.
was held. Now, I grew up in town, so it was something that really, really was needed and really shoved up.
You're very kind.
And since then, I suppose, watching your career over the last number of years, you've really become a role model for, not just for young women, or not just with the LGBT community, but for young people in general, because
Oh, you're very kind.
you've really kind of embraced a politics that's not about the Fianna Fáils or the Fine Gaels or the Labour parties or anything like that. It's about the voice of the person, and particularly the voice of young people. So my question for you is, taking all your experiences over the years and becoming that very, very positive role model, what advice would you give the 16, the 17, the 18-year-old now on how to kind of direct that positive energy?
Oh, fabulous. What's your first name?
Nicola.
Nicola, thank you very much, and thank you for a very warm. I really do try and pay everybody in Tralee to say nice things about me. Yeah. Well, I'm 8 years old now from festival, so that's a long fado. But I'm very kind. Many things, it's exactly as you said. To the 16, 17, 18-year-old, hell, to the 34-year-old like me who's thinking about getting involved and seeing a lot of noise, not just out there, but online, within their groups, a lot of information, be it real or not. It's sometimes hard to really distill that and hear essentially your own authentic voice within that all. For me, it is the core of everything we do, I think, as humans, is to leave this place a little bit better than the way we found it. And some might say that's a little bit romantic, but fundamentally it's not. And not just our green print or our blueprint, but also the caring model that we evolve in and develop in. And not everybody is privileged to have grown up like I in a house with the same parents who had access to education. And I'm incredibly understanding of that. I'm also very much understanding that when I went to the International Rose of Tralee as a young woman representing Philly, that was also a privilege, not just because of my skin colour, but the fact that I have an Irish passport that is a gateway to a lot of different parts of this world that not everybody has that same privilege. On top of that then too, so there's many different layers, that I grew up in a house in a community that welcomed me in all my shapes and sizes, in all my colours of my rainbow, and in all my daft ideas like running for politics. But for me, it is down to, if there's something that you're very passionate about, and take, for instance, mental health, because I hope that comes up a little bit today with y'all, because for me that is and has been our pandemic long before this current pandemic that we're living in. We have a legacy here that we need to kaboot, and we need to grow in and develop as people to understand where to go and how we can help each other through difficult periods that will happen all over a course of our lifetime. But to answer your question specifically, volunteerism helps. If you have key issues that you want to focus on, I can tell you this, and it may not always feel it, but there is political leaders like myself, and I out there. I don't really like calling myself a politician. I feel a little bit like it's an icky word that I haven't really quite got over. Like a facilitator or an idea generator. There's plenty of us out there that need a kick in the derriere and need to hear from people. Now, sometimes I get from younger people like, but why should I get in touch? They should come for me. And I get it. Hell, I was in that line too. But nothing moves if somebody doesn't move. So therefore, getting in touch with one of your political leaders, have hustings like this where you've all different political parties and you might have a particular issue at play, and that kind of removes the policy and the political noise of it from the table, and then you're just talking about issues at hand. Get in touch with the likes of our media, like Harry, who are like, what are you talking about and why aren't you talking about this? Get involved in volunteerism. There's some amazing organisations next door that I had the privilege of speaking with, a majority of them. So there's a lot of things. If you're not seeing something, create it. Armchair activism has to end, and fundamentally it has to end with your generation. Because if it doesn't, then we don't see the differences in rooms anymore. I'm even like passionate talking about that there. Like we don't see the change. We only then see, excuse my ignorance, but you see folks like me who are may not be male but pale and stale, and then they're not representing our communities. Like, I can tell you looking out in this room from just a surface level, I don't know anybody's lived experiences, so therefore I'm not perhaps privileged to say this, but let me say, this room does not reflect our politics. And in Europe, across the world, and in Ireland. So what are we going to do to change that? Well, you got to get up off the armchair, put your hand up and get involved. I'm trying to work on, and we might not see it in this local elections, but I'm trying to work on a pilot project across local councils across the country to see, can we find a couple of different areas where a percentage, so say like 3 seats from a local election in 2024 and beyond, will be held specifically for under 25s. Big idea. I'll need support on that, so I'll be back to all annoy y'all. But can you imagine if you got to go out and vote for your first time for someone who looks like you, sounds like you, and talks like you, and is talking about the issues at hand? Yeah, like that's how we change politics. And ultimately then that's how I think we answer a question. It doesn't happen overnight. Unfortunately, our political ship moves a hell of a lot slower than our societal shift. But if you look at the referendums and how this country has changed in the last 5 years, if you asked anybody in politics who got in before 2014, did they think Ireland would change like this as fast as it would? Absolutely not. And now our classrooms are richer for it. These rooms are richer for it. So then, to reflect to your question then, volunteerism, active citizenship, ending armchair activism, forcing yourself into a team, be it political or otherwise, asking the difficult questions, and then if you're not getting the answer that you like, okay, how can I shift that answer? And how can I push that forward? It is hard work though, and it's not going to change overnight, but then equality is hard fought and quickly lost, so ultimately that's my answer for you right now. Yeah. And I'll try and keep my answer shorter.
You've just answered all the questions. That's me done for the entire day. Thank you very much. That was Maria.
Sorry, I had to ask before I forgot.
No, it's okay. No, it's fine. Yeah, do me out of the job. That's all right. Don't worry about it. You know,
and what is sad is he said earlier that he had all his notes prepared like last week. Isn't that cute?
I haven't been working on this for weeks. Don't worry. Gonna go home and cry.
Lorraine is going to tell me to stop bullying our poor MC for the day.
I know there is questions in the room.
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
There is another question. There's a couple of questions. I'm not going to ask a question, right? There's really no point in me asking a question. People in the room have questions. So please, fire ahead.
My name's Aisha.
Aisha, is it?
Yes.
Aisha.
I'm a young person who's quite involved. I've been running on the Youth Advisory Committee for over and over again. I'm part of the Young Voices right now. And
Powerful.
I love change.
Yeah.
I love representation. And you talked about the point that our political system is changing so much slower than society. As someone who, I guess now, is a politician, what do you think needs to change so we can kind of accelerate the political system as the society does?
I just add to that as well, because the fantastic comment was activism was our politics at home, and I thought that was really powerful. And I think for a lot of people in the room here, you probably associate with that in a sense that I know myself, I don't affiliate with any political party. I do have certain ideas that I support and certain ideas I don't. But for me, it's very difficult to support a political party, but you still want to make that change that you feel that you have to be a part of. So I suppose, to add on to your question, I suppose, is it the fact that we need to get rid of the traditional system, break it entirely and reshape it, or is there other ways? Or
this is where I hear my party leader,
Leo Varadkar be calling you on the way home.
No,
go on.
yeah. And powerful questions. And first and foremost, may I just say, because it never gets said enough, it's rare in a political room or a political activized room like this. My English, I hope, is making sense to you. I don't know if I'm making up words or it's rare that 2 female voices come to the fore first. So I just want to acknowledge that and stand within the power of that. But to answer both questions there, do I think the political ship needs to be sunk? No, I think, for me, I get asked and challenged all the time, like, why Fine Gael? Like, why the party? And I want to make this as apolitical too, because I think I never feel comfortable talking about one type of politics in a room full of young people in particular, because I think that's unfair. I get that a lot when I talk about LGBTQI stuff. People are like, is everybody going to be gay now? No, you're not. And no, but if everybody wants to join Fine Gael, you're more than welcome to be, and also gay. Whatever you want to be in the world, it's fine. I hope people are not recording this because I'm in so much trouble.
You are Mike, by the way.
Yeah. Hello, Mom. Hello, Leo. No, like I think, for me, it's down to, I could have ran as an independent to share my lived experience. I could have. But I felt the power of the systematic change then wouldn't change, and I would be standing on the outside pointing fingers, and for me it just didn't sit comfortably then. Now, if you look at any political party, and I love always when you answer you're not affiliated with the political party, and you can see that on your social media and your commentary.
And it's nothing to do with any political party. I should add that I don't think anyone has anything against political party. It's more just that standing on the outside. I know I don't want to be an armchair.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I think that's really important. I think that's honest, and actually that's what I think we need to hear too, because not everything or not every organisation or even issue is going to be exactly what you want it to be when you want it to be it, and that's a real honest answer there. But how, from my perspective, you implement that change is, right, I go into a party that I'm in and I say, right, like what is that I can change in real time and keep pushing the needle forward? Things like equality, sure, has changed drastically in the last few years, but we still have, look at the rainbow community, we still don't have equality in that. When you look at women, we definitely have no more near equality there. I'm working on a directive right now in the Parliament, just to bring back to European Parliament work here, that is currently being challenged by my own political group, the EPP group, from our Swedish and German colleagues, around pay transparency, so equal pay for equal work. So right now there's about a 14% pay gap between men and women across some different sectors. While that is a fundamental problem, yes, but it's also when women go to retire, it comes to about 30% pay gap. So you're thinking, sure, over time you build up that pay divide, and then the equality is so far removed that things really aren't changing. So, but if I wasn't in that political group, my rebuttals to things wouldn't be strong. My vision and my clarity around what actually needs to happen, I don't think would be as strong, because I can see within the political system that I'm in now where it is that I need to continue to push. To your point about what it is that you can do, if I
You're talking about, so I study politics and society at the level.
Yeah.
I love the subject, and I think every young person should do it, because the biggest part of it is not necessarily politics, it's the society.
Yeah.
And my question is, we accelerate at a level that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And as a young person, you're taking in so much insight at a time. How do we kind of equal it out with the political system? We've got an archaic one. And you brought that up. We don't have gender equality. The LGBTQI plus community isn't represented. How do we make it equal? How do we balance?
Can I be a real dork and kick it back to you and say, what do you think we need to change?
We need education.
Okay, in what form?
I think it's getting into a room like this where it's before getting into a young person who is like.
Sorry, I'm just going to give you that just so everyone can hear you, just so
Yeah,
the point can be heard.
And ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be a part of a campaign when it gets kicked off in its
Somebody's coming for
infancy.
your job anyway.
Yeah, so I'm really excited.
So everybody, I apologize.
No, don't apologise. No apologies needed.
Like getting here wasn't easy. I started when I was 15. I volunteered. I got involved. It was a thing where I walked into a room not knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I walked in because my little siblings were invited to an after school group by Ferroga. And they
Shout out to Ferroga.
Yeah.
They're here.
And they saw people in my school uniform, my age. And I just showed up. Like, that's how I got involved. And then I met with ministers, I sat down, I've done my conversation. But I've done that. And I've dragged 3 people with me today. So, literally, because, guys, there's an event, come along. Because I knew. Because you get into this bubble, we talked about it. How do we get all young people? Like, I want a thing where this information is available, is simplified for all young people. Because then when you educate, people are informed and people will act.
Yeah.
That is a thing we don't have for young people, we don't have for adults. My mom, awesome lady, freedom. She she's got a master's, like she came to this country, has a master's in microbiology training. My mother, I guess, was kind of that person I looked up to, because she got involved in different things, and I just went with it. The adults, when I tell my mom things, she tells me things. She then has a friend group, and they've all started doing things. We need a thing where we bridge the gap between young and old, between white and people of colour. We need a thing where everyone's together, regardless of your beliefs and views. But that needs to be a societal thing before it becomes a political thing.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that in society. We just don't. And I think that needs to happen first. We need to have these roundtable discussions. I need to be able to sit down with someone who I can completely disagree with and still have a very civil conversation.
Yeah, that's a skill in
that
itself.
That needs to then be transformed into our political system. Communicated to the people who are making decisions in order to reflect and represent the citizens of Ireland and us as citizens of Europe correctly. And that's my answer to you.
I mean, powerful. Everybody's like, yeah. Shout out to Goshka because I've seen Yvonne. Powerful. I mean, you just gave me my marching orders, and not just me. You gave every youth organisation in the room. So we all have work to do. I still do believe, though, our community needs to reflect our politics. I agree with everything you said. How it makes a change is folks like yourself. Like you brought 3 friends now. Your mother. Yeah. Your mother. Yeah, will alert security. But I think that to the point of what I briefly highlighted, and I should have probably put more context to it, is the European Year of Youth is this amazing avenue and vehicle to have these conversations. And as consumers, because that's all we are, we consume, then what goes on beyond 2022 is exceptionally important. Perhaps in some rooms even more important what 2022 will pan out with in the EU year, because what are we doing next? And with that then it is getting ready. Local elections are in 2024. So do you have more mates? How do you run? How can you get to run? Could perhaps Lurgus or any other organisation in the room, or myself even, run some how-to guides in getting onto the political ship. And then it's a case of the hustings, as I mentioned, more rooms like this. And there's no reason why on any issue there couldn't be circles. And I say circles only because I think of women's groups and that's what I call it in terms of that. But I look forward to you. Where are you living? I'm so excited you're not Midlands Northwest. The 13 counties, I'd be like, oh God, I'll just give you my year now. Like here you go.
You must just walk around like hoping that you don't meet somebody who's in the constituency.
I mean, but I do a lot of Q&As with schools, and then there's people who are like, I'm going to be running for your seat in 2024. Oh, don't! I'd only be delighted. Yeah, don't count me in. Count me in for sure. And that's not to make light of the what you just said there. I mean, I have nothing else to add on because you powerfully said everything that is all of our homework.
We are a little limited in time.
Sorry.
I know there is questions in the room. I'm really sorry, and I hate to be the person who ends a really great conversation or brings it to a shorter close. I have 2 questions I want to ask you about 2 particular things before we do. Lorraine's pointing at me. I'm pointing to a question. Yeah. It is now 12 minutes past 11. We have a panel discussion after this, and then we have workshops and we have other things. And I'm afraid that if I take any more questions, I'm going to cut other people's time. And I want to give everyone the opportunity to speak. So I don't want to cut anyone short. But please, Maria is very open online.
Mean,
I know
Lorraine.
you're going to.
Yeah.
I know.
I would have been feck the schedule, let's go. But no, you're right.
I'm going to bring drop into the DMs to a whole new level here and say that please do. And look, I'm sure everyone will take the opportunity. Please do have the conversations after. But I have to move. I do. I really do.
In the yellow jumper, I'll find you after this, and I'll get that question.
I'm so sorry.
If there's another one there.
I have 2 questions. Right, 2 questions is
I know.
So Eurofound reported last year that this generation will be the first not to improve on the previous ones in terms of wealth, income and future prospects, right? So that's the first question I want to ask you, because I want to know, are you as concerned as I am? Because that petrifies me, okay?
Yeah.
And I know, look, the European Year of Youth for me is all about opportunities, but it's addressing the problems that we face, the very real problems we face now. And the last one is, I know last month in the European Parliament you spoke about how young people are, and I'm quoting, victims of a mental health pandemic, and I know you're very passionate about that, so I just want the opportunity to speak both of those things, because they're very real problems, but they impact myself, they impact every other young person in this room and the generations that come after us. So in this year, I suppose, what can we do to try and fix those things and to kind of really make sure that young people are a priority? Because the pandemic has disproportionately affected us, so I'm kind of concerned. I'm genuinely concerned. I think a lot of people are as well. So your thoughts would be great.
To combine both the questions,
Yeah.
because I think they interweave within the two. At 34, this is now my second recession, and unfortunately my second, if not third, war. As from 9/11 to now Ukraine, and I'm not directly impacted. I still am capable and able to get up every morning in the safety of a home and go to work. I mean, that's why when I link back and talk about privilege, I'm very fortunate because not too far away from here, and unfortunately, statistically, more than likely in this room, safety is obviously not always at the fore of everybody's lived experience too. It terrifies me that Eurofound is highlighting that this coming generation is most impacted. I share your fear with that. How we change that is through through a more engaged and communicative political society. Not that politics is the be all and end all, but when you look at costs, when you look at budgets, when you look at and not just at a national level, because sometimes it gets really convoluted up there. I think at a local level, when you're not seeing what is being done or you're not being communicative with, that's incredibly impactful. I also think as citizens, though, regardless of our age, we also have to understand if we are not, as consumers, not going out looking for that information too, then the two-way conversation, the relationship, that marrying of both doesn't happen either. In terms of the EU Year of Youth, and in line with the conference on the future of Europe, that's also ongoing and will end in May, but I mean, it will continue on much like the EU Year of Youth, I would hope. It is, what are the big ticket items? So you very kindly allowed me to share and brought up mental health. As simplistic as it sounds, I feel if each and every one of us has mental health, and it's everyone's business. If you do not feel as a young person, as an adult, as a silver person, or whatever the term the political statistics are giving our older generation, if you don't feel you have support immediately, or at least within a short period of time, if you don't know where to go when you're having any sort of transition period. And shout out to Jigsaw, who taught me a lot about this, about being a one good adult and talking about mental health. So for me, there's mental well-being, there's mental health, and then there's mental ill health. And at various points, we shift in between all three. And some days we can shift into all three. And how we get access to support, how we understand our own language and our own needs. I always talk about Finland and the fact that they ran a pilot project maybe about 5-6 years ago, and now it's implemented right across Finland, that as young as Montessori age, young people are taught about communicating effectively through language. If they're feeling sad, afraid, if they feel happy, elated, whatever the feeling is, that they're able to communicate that. And think of what a world we'd live in if, as any age, we're able to openly, honestly share how it is, our mental health is, and how we're moving. To take it back to the economics, because unfortunately that's what we often lean into, because they're hard data, much like Eurofound.
And it's interesting, because I read a report the other day that said when an economic recession hits, it's young people who are affected.
Yeah.
It's always young people, because it's the employment, we're part-time work, we're in
precarious
unstable
roles,
contracts. We trying to get into jobs, trying to get into the future. So it's always unfortunate, but it's one of the consequences of it.
I mean, again, my own lived experience, I was coming out of college. I just graduated college when the financial crash hit. My father is self-employed. My mother is also self-employed. we come from a very blue collar, if we're going to Americanize it, household, and 4 kids and 1 kid out of college and needing to get full-time work somewhere. I moved back to the States because I had an opportunity to work there. I have a sister in Perth, Australia. I have a brother in Los Angeles, California. And we unfortunately are a modern family. And that just goes to show you we lost generations. And perhaps lost is a little bit of an exaggeration, but we currently do not house them in Ireland. Therefore, to me, they are lost. And what is scary about this pandemic in Eurofound stats is we cannot afford to lose more generations. If we are going to be an island that is pro-European, that is democratic, that is economically sound, that is the hubs, be it tech, pharma, or self-employed or entrepreneurship. And I know you're looking at me to wind it up. His mother's texted saying, get her off the stage. But for me, I think next steps are communication and conversation is incredibly important. We have a lot of upcoming elections. And when I say, 2024 is not too far away, we have a lot of change to make within that time. We also need to hear from people, and I think that's what the European Year of Youth is really integrally important. We have so many organisations that are pro-European, so when we talk about next steps and trying to change those stats in real time, it is leaning into them, learning from Lorraine and Lurga's team to figure out what it is that we need to do to make the European year as impactful as we can. Because when we talk about climate, and I spoke to a fabulous woman, Risha, earlier on, who doesn't want to leave the country, which is fantastic, because she's really inspired here. Then we have about 200,000 Ukrainians due to arrive in, and over the next coming weeks. So as a country, we have bodies, and we just need to make sure we have an island that is moving forth. And I feel like I'm giving sound bubble and speech bubble political noise here, but I genuinely don't mean to. I look forward to seeing what comes out of today in order to impact what I need to do tomorrow, and not just by pay transparency, and not just by getting more younger people involved in politics, and not just about our economic inputs or mental health. It's what it is that you need to drive. And sometimes in the noise of that, it's very hard. Yeah. I find it myself personally every day. But it comes down to, right, how do we take control of an island of a European Union that is going to be our home for generations to come? And sadly, how do we turn those statistics on their head? We do it together, and as romantic as that sounds, that's fundamentally how we change things. It's true conversation. I think that's what I like the idea that it's conversation over confrontation is always really important, because we can have the arguments and we can all scream at each other, and people do it on Twitter every day of the week. Everyone tweets politicians and likes to abuse them left, right and centre, but doesn't really achieve anything. It's the conversation, and hopefully that's what this year is about. Can I just add a quick line to that? So, I mean, I know the communication and confrontation, I'm going to steal that line because I really love it. Like, I now rarely go on Twitter for the amount of abuse I get. So if you're trying to communicate with me, and only because I'm trying to mind my own mental health, that there's things I do on a daily basis that I'm really trying to push the needle forth, and Twitter is a horrible place sometimes to find the wood from the trees there. So to which that then, I love that, and I think that's one thing if we are I'm taking away too, it's like communication versus confrontation, and how we have those honest dialogues in a safe space where everybody's walking away and feeling that their voice is heard and that we're moving forward. And it might take a number of different conversations like that to actually move change, but it's better that than what we're living in right now in confrontation. Yeah, and look, I know everyone has probably a dozen questions. I'm sorry, I didn't make the agenda. It's Lorraine's fault. Oh my God! Talk about throwing you under the bus. So I do apologise, but look, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Hopefully you can answer maybe a couple of questions during lunch or the break if you're around, and for sure. Really appreciate it. So thank you very much. A round of applause for Maria, please. Wow.